Hey there, darlings. Welcome to the Farmer's Table. My name is Jess. If you're new here, I'm really glad you're here. And if you're not new here, welcome back. I'm also glad that you're here. We are in the kitchen today and we are going to have a chat about cookbooks. Just a fair warning on the beginning. This will be entertaining, I'm sure, and full of vital information if you are looking for great cookbooks to learn from. I am a little long-winded, so you may want to get a cup of something warm. And put your headphones in, cook dinner. I'll keep you company. I'm good for that. So today I'm going to talk to you about some of my most favorite cookbooks. I've had this video requested multiple times this week. I do collect cookbooks. I have for years, and this is not an exhaustive list. This is just the fact that I'm trying to keep this video a realistic length that people actually want to listen to. So this is like the tippy top of my favorites list. At this point, I do have like hundreds of cookbooks, and I used to bring in like absolutely every single cookbook I could get my hands on. At this point, I'm a little pickier, and these cookbooks right here kind of like set the bar for me as far as what I really want in a great cookbook. I should tell you, what am I looking for in a great cookbook so that you know maybe that we value the same thing, so you can take my advice here. If I get a cookbook, I want to have at least a good solid portion of the recipes in that book that are applicable to my family, to the way that we eat. We eat real food. We largely eat seasonally. We grow a lot of our food, so I really appreciate when books use real ingredients and they're not using anything that's highly processed. I like a cookbook that has a lot of character. Like some of these do have beautiful pictures, some of them don't. That's not a must for me. It really just depends. But I really like a book that's readable. And I have a couple of notes on that on some of these. I will lay in bed at night and read a cookbook as long as I'm not hungry. If you're hungry, don't do that. It's a bad idea. But I find them entertaining. I actually learned to cook from cookbooks, which we'll get to this one right here on top of the list. I launched into adulthood. I was very young. I did not have any like adulting experience, and I was trying to like care for a family and for myself for the first time. And my expertise in cooking at that point was like opening cans and reading the back of boxes. I was very much like heating up processed food, and I wanted to learn how to cook, and I primarily did that by cooking through cookbooks and watching like cooking shows, which is really kind of where my heart comes from in making this channel, is that I want to walk people through things so that even if you don't have a lot of experience in cooking, you can still create beautiful things and grow in confidence, because cooking is not hard. It's just like any other skill you have to learn. So when I get a new cookbook, usually what I do is I'll go through and I'll earmark like 5 or so recipes that I want to try right off the bat, and I'll usually work those into like my meal plan pretty soon if they're seasonally applicable. And then if they're really good, then I'll go through and really challenge myself to try new things. When I was learning to cook, what I would do is I would get a cookbook and I would actually challenge myself to cook every recipe in the cookbook. This was the first book I ever did that with. This is called Mad Hungry: Feeding Men and Boys by Lucinda, Scala, Quinn. And as a very young and inexperienced cook, I actually cooked through this book cover to cover, not in order, but everything in it. It was very much a challenge. I remember buying oxtails for the first time after they were in this book, and like really having to push myself in some areas that I wasn't just inexperienced in things like oxtails. I was inexperienced in cooking from scratch altogether. So it was kind of like diving off into the deep end, but that's kind of how I like swimming. So this book holds a special place in my heart. As you can see, my copy bears the marks of being extremely well loved. Lucinda Scala Quinn, when she wrote this was her first book, and she was like Martha Stewart's kind of right hand in a lot of the things that she did. And she wrote this book and shared a lot of her personal experience in raising her 3 sons. And of course, at the time, I actually only had 2 sons. Now I have 5. So I've definitely spent my time feeding men and boys, to be sure. There are some of my most tried and true recipes that I still use today came from this. I highly recommend it. She's actually written 2 more. She may have written more than this. These are the other 2 that I have. She has Mad Hungry Cravings and Mad Hungry Family. These are also really good. I have cooked multiple things out of them and have used them, but obviously this has been one that is very dear to me. So Lucinda Scala Quinn, at this point, I would comfortably like recommend anything that she shares because she is just really, she knows what she's talking about, and she writes a great cookbook. It's readable, it's enjoyable, it's entertaining, you feel a lot of confidence. I appreciate that. Okay, so here's another one that if you've been here on my channel very long, you've probably heard me say I'm not like an avid baker. I've never been an avid baker because it requires a little more exacting measurements than I really care to do. I'm really like a throw it in girl and see what happens. It's actually, to my husband's great annoyance, there will be times that we'll eat something, he's like, this is so good. I'm like, enjoy it. It'll never taste exactly like that again, because I can't even tell you exactly what I did. You know, like, I joke that it's chopped kitchen in my kitchen a lot. I'm just throwing things together. But if I need to bake something, and I'm looking in a cookbook, this is one of my go-tos. Again, I mean, it's a mess, which to me, if a cookbook is a mess in a kitchen, that means it's being actively used. It's open a lot while food is being handled. And to me, that's the mark of a good cookbook. You could probably pick out my favorite ones just based on how beat up they are. So this is called the Back in the Day Bakery Cookbook by Cheryl and Griffith Day. This used to have a dust cover on it. It doesn't anymore. I think they've written other books now, but this is kind of a go-to. This cookbook has some really, really great recipes, and everything I've ever made out of this, which is one I've made quite a few things out of, everything just turns out really, really well. So this is where the carrot cake that I regularly make originated from this. There's a strawberry cake in here that's kind of like a staple in our family. There are some cookies in here, red velvet cake. Yeah, this is the strawberry cupcake, so you can check that page out. I actually used to make jar cakes in little pint mason jars or half pint mason jars and sell them at the farmer's market a million years ago. And I would use this recipe, and I would use like local strawberries when they were in season and use this icing recipe. So this is a really good one, the Back in the Day Bakery Cookbook by the Day. The next one, I actually have two by Sean Brock. I have this one and his other. I can't find it on my shelf right now, and I decided I needed to let it go because I was looking through everything and I just needed to shoot the video. So Sean Brock is, I don't believe he is still in South Carolina, but he is from South Carolina. And so he shares a lot of recipes that are to our area. So he talks about things like there's Sea Island red peas, which is a local heirloom that we have grown in our garden that are very popular here, and some different things like that. This book is gorgeous. Like, the photos are really gorgeous. The recipes, like this is Crowder pea and hominy succotash. So these are like very much like South Carolina type things. I will say this is not as simple as some of these other books. Some of the other ones are a little more straightforward. This one is, I would say, a little bit more adventurous. He is a professional chef and doing like really high-end cooking, but there are some simple things in here. It's like super basic fried okra recipe, which it's interesting. He's got several okra recipes. Like there's grilled okra, fried okra, which those are ones I don't ever look at a recipe for because it's like in my southern blood to do those. But like Limpin' Susan, this is an okra recipe that has like rice and vegetable base in it. Tomato okra stew. So there are some really basic methods in this one, and this one's just called South Essential Recipes and New Explorations. And then he has another one. I'll find a link to it. The picture on the front is like his hands holding something, and he's got tattoos on his arm. I just can't remember what it's called. I can't find it on my shelf. I must have loaned it to somebody. But that one is more adventurous than this one. But if you are growing a garden, especially if you're growing a southern garden, and so you have like a lot of okra and peas and things like that. I think finding cookbook for people who are cooking seasonal food in the region where you are growing is really helpful to partner with your garden, because whenever you are just like overrun with okra, yes, we're thinking about preserving, but like I want to try it in all the different ways. And so that's why I particularly like Sean Brock's cookbooks. I don't always follow the recipes like you know, to a T, because as I said, they are a little more advanced than a lot of times what I'm trying to do. A lot of times I'm just trying to cook something way more straightforward. But I feel like I'm very inspired by these, and it makes it to the top of my list because even if I'm not always following them to a T, I do look at them a lot, and I do kind of use them as a jumping off point a lot. And they're also just really beautiful. All right, next, being a gardener, cooking seasonally, gardens grow ingredients. If you're going to try to grow your own food, or if you're going to try to source it locally, it doesn't come with instructions. It doesn't come packaged. It doesn't come telling you what to do with it. You just get ingredients. When you go to the farmer's market, you're just going to find ingredients for the most part. So I really love when I can find people who have written cookbooks that are doing what I'm doing and valuing food the same way. So this is Andrea Bemis, and she has these two books. This is called Local Dirt, Seasonal Recipes for Eating Close to Home, and this one is called Dishing Up the Dirt, Simple Recipes for Cooking Through the Seasons. And these books are also very, very beautiful. Just the imagery is really lovely in them. The captions and the stories that are told are really, really beautiful. I rather like just looking through these, but the recipes are really good. I've made quite a few things out of these. A lot of these are, I guess we can call it plant-based. Yeah, they are plant-based. A lot of them are. She uses eggs and some different things. This does have meat in it. But a lot of times when I'm looking to use something from my garden, I will go here. Like this roasted beet and carrot lentil salad. I've made some variation of this. For me, a lot of times with recipe books, I look at them and kind of like go with mostly what it says. I'm just trying to figure out how to marry the flavors and what to do with it. But both of these are really good. Maya and I were discussing, just kind of for fun together, just picking a cookbook and cooking all the recipes in it, just to challenge ourselves. You know, sometimes you get a little bit bored in the meal slump of what are we going to do? We're going to do this again, or I'll have a bunch of carrots or beets or something come in, and I end up just doing the same old things with them. So we were discussing just picking a cookbook and cooking all of the recipes as I used to do when I was learning, just to kind of challenge ourselves and kind of spice up the meal plan. And these two books were the two that I was recommending to him to pick one to do. Maybe we might do both of them. So I've done a lot of the recipes out of there. I haven't done all of them though. This book is the exception to me saying, oh, I like the pictures and I like it to be like super readable, where you can just like sit down and read a little bit of it and feel inspired. This book is like a class text is what I feel like. This is called On Food and Cooking, The Science and Lore of the Kitchen by Harold McGee. So if you've ever watched Alton Brown very much on, like, he does like the food shows and stuff, he talks a lot about the science of what and why things happen in the kitchen, and he actually references this book pretty regularly. So this, I don't know when it was originally published, 1984. So it's been out for a little while. It's older than me, but it is intense. As I said, it's like a textbook. I mean, here we've got like little diagrams of molecules, but I have not read this cover to cover. For me, it's more, I will pick it up and like read a chapter or something like that here or there, especially if I'm trying to learn something new, like whenever I've been working on like doing some different things in baking and really growing my skills in that. I come and I will read what this book has to say about different doughs and different things like that, because for me, I find it very beneficial to understand the why of something. And this is a really good book. If you like, this isn't necessarily a recipe book, but if you really like understanding why things do what they do in the kitchen, I would say this is one that I would suggest. The next book, actually don't have my copy. I am guessing that it is in my son Ezra's room, and if I go back there and start looking for it, you won't see this video today because I will get terribly sidetracked by organizing their room. I've raised all of my children to be sufficient in the kitchen. You know, I want them to be able to turn the stove on, turn the oven on, make basic things. You know, I started teaching them to scramble eggs when they were, you know, had to pull a stool up to the stove and things like that. But I've not pushed where I don't see passion. So I want them to be sufficient. I want them to be able to feed themselves. But if they don't show a lot of passion, I don't necessarily like push. My oldest son Jackson really enjoys cooking. He's actually been on the channel here before with me making some things. And then my fourth son Ezra, he has a spark of passion in the kitchen that I don't think any of my other children have. And if I had to hazard a guess to where my salt, fat, acid, heat cookbook is, I would assume it's probably in Ezra's room because he loves reading that book. So Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, this is what the cover looks like. And it is by Samin Nosrat, and I'm sorry if I'm saying her name wrong. They actually did a TV show that I think it's on Netflix. It's a 4-episode TV show with her that is Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, and each episode covers each one of these elements of cooking. And this book kind of makes me think of that, but this is an actual like recipe book, not necessarily a this much measurement per recipe, but like how to use salt, fat, acid, and heat in your cooking to balance your recipes so that they taste good. I highly recommend watching that show. Ezra watched that show with me. We've watched it twice now, all the way through. It's so beautiful. It's a beautifully shot show, and the book is great also. Obviously the book came out a while before that show did, and I had gotten it years ago, and it really actually helped me to understand a lot. And it's more approachable than this. As I said, this really reads like a text, whereas the other book is a lot easier to digest and extremely helpful. Okay, so the last pile here. I saved my favorite for last. I love Nigel Slater. I love Nigel Slater's cookbooks. These are my most favorite cookbooks that I have. And I feel bad saying it because I really love these other ones, so that's really saying something. Some years ago, I had a then viewer turned friend, April, gift me this book. She'd watched my channel Roots and Refuge, followed along with gardening and all that stuff, and said, hey, if you've never heard of him, you need this book. And she sent me this first one. So this was my introduction. And obviously since then I have amassed quite the collection of his books. Nigel Slater actually, I believe, does a cooking show, and I've never watched his show. When I talk about like watching that Netflix series and stuff like that, I will watch some TV with my kids, but I'm really not a sit down and watch TV person. I don't have the attention span for it. But I probably would like his show. If it's anything like his books, I probably would, but maybe I'll wait till winter time to open that up. These books are so beautiful and so poetic. They do have some photos in it, but not very many. They're very simple when they do have photos. There's a lot of text that does not have photos with it. But Nigel Slater is a poet, 100%. The way that he writes about food is absolutely beautiful. It's so readable. I feel like these books are laid out in such a way that they're very conducive to using alongside your garden, because he's a gardener. So he just has this passion for gardening and this passion for food. And I really love the way that the recipes are written. They're very casual. So for instance, let's see, it'll be like a large bunch, 2 large handfuls, a thumb-sized piece of ginger. It's just very natural to how ingredients come. It kind of stresses me out when I'm trying to read a recipe and it has like a very exact measurement of something that doesn't come in that measurement. Like, you know, from the garden, you're never going to get a 1/4 cup of certain things. They're always going to be bigger than that. And I like it when recipes kind of take that into consideration. I really love this book specifically. This is called Tender, which is a cook in his vegetable patch. So this one specifically is written kind of love letter to the garden style, and it goes through and talks about each individual thing. Like here's the section on chard, which he will then write about chard, talk about chard in the garden. It says a chard diary and talks about the different kind of times of year and what's going on with it. He touches on different varieties, and then chard in the kitchen. It talks about different ways to season it, different notes of different ways he's tried to cook it, and then we jump in to specific recipes for chard. Like here is a gratin, a soup, chard with olive oil and lemon, potato cakes with chard, a shallow tart of chard and cheese, and then we go in and now we're in Chinese greens. And this is pretty exhaustive. I mean, it covers so many different things using garden food. His bit here on Jerusalem artichokes is what made me want to grow them. I was laughing, I mean, just as he talked about them, the way that he made them sound. I feel like he makes such a great case for different vegetables that in reading it, you're just like, oh, I want to make that, because the way he makes it sound so lovely. So he does have all these other books too. So let's see, Ripe is a cook in the orchard. So this is talking a lot about different fruits and different ways to use them. Again, quite exhaustive. You know, it covers the basic things like here's blueberries, but it's also covers lots of different nuts. Like here's gooseberries, like some things that may be a little bit more obscure, but it's as big as tender and as beautiful. And then let's see, he has these, what he calls the kitchen diaries. And these are, he actually recorded what he cooked and ate like throughout the year. So like here you open this and it's May 31st. And it's just a little bit of conversation. Baking grounds me. After 3 weeks away, amusing myself with cod's milk, baby eels, firefly squid, boiled fish heads, and meat of massaged bulls. Like, it's so fascinating. Like, he's adventurous. He's just documenting it. They're so readable, but they're also some really great recipes. A lot of them are very simple and straightforward. A lot of them would be considered more adventurous by a lot of people, but I have tried so many wonderful things from his books. He has a couple, like this one, Eat. This is way more small and straightforward, different recipes, not as chatty as the other ones. As you can see, it's significantly smaller. And then these two are kind of like the others. Notes from the Larder and A Cook's Book. I just actually glanced at this. Wall Street Journal said few cooks describe flavors better or with more charm. I entirely agree. Like, I feel like I really know what something's gonna taste like whenever I read his description of it. One thing I also love about this with all of these, because so much of it is, like this is another one where he's writing the date and kind of what he's making. Some of it is extremely simple. Like, some of it is just like I remember seeing one recipe and deciding to make it where he had taken like cherry tomatoes still on the vine and put them to like charbroil under the broiler, and then covered them with like this oil and had just put them on this crusty toast, and there was like a little bit of a spread, but it was super simple. It was something you could just do without any fuss, especially if you have stuff coming in from the garden. So I find that having books like this that I can read keeps me very inspired. And if you're gonna do a lot of cooking from scratch, inspiration is really important to have. The last one of his to note is this is the Christmas Chronicles that he has, and I really adore this book. I love Christmas time. I love celebrating, and this talks about a lot of like sweet things. It's really good to read, but it also has some very special like seasonal recipes. So that is the tippy top of my cookbook list. I'd love to share more if you like hearing about it. I will look through and try to find links to these, at least put the names down below where you guys can see them, and so you can get the spelling. But I'd love to know what your favorite cookbook is, because if I don't have it, I would like to get it and find out and cook through it. Have you ever cooked through a cookbook front to back, cooked all the recipes? And if you were to suggest one to me to cook through all the recipes of, which one would it be? I'm not allowed to make official announcements yet. I don't know that I'm not allowed, but it's discouraged. So I won't officially tell you that a cookbook is in my future, but I do have a lot of work to do this weekend, so thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I bless you. Until next time.